wash your hands. Scrub them while you're singing the song. Wash. Rub your hands and fingers and the places in between. Using soap and water makes your hands so clean. Wash your hands. Make sure you're almost done. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, now dry.
Wash your hands for 20 seconds, just like Elmo.
Welcome to Chapter 12, Food Safety and Food Technology. Food Industry and Food Safety Control by Professor Tammy. Learning Objectives. Describe microbial foodborne illnesses and core practices that can prevent them. Identify the categories of food that most often cause foodborne illnesses. From farm to plate, make food safe. From farm to processing to transportation to retail to the plate when you eat. Farm. Workers must use safe methods of growing, harvesting, sorting, packaging, and storing food to minimize contamination hazards. Like if you buy pork, you don't want to be getting beef. If you're buying chicken, you don't want to be getting pork in your meat or mix up in your meat or any other critters. Processing. Processors must follow FDA guidelines concerning contamination, cleanliness, and education and training of workers and must monitor for safety at critical control points. So, you don't want urine all over your meat. Like if someone is cutting meat and they cut the bladder by accident, that's food contamination. And if they use the same knife or the sharp edge and they touch the next meat and so on, those meat also get contaminated. Transportation. Containers and vehicles transporting food must be clean. So you don't want like raw meat in your truck before vegetables and fruits are put in. It must be clean. Cold food must be kept cold at all times. Let's just say you have frozen chicken in the truck. You want to make sure that that truck has the correct temperature even if it is a hot day of 110 degrees. The truck should still be in refrigeration temperature for the food. Retail/restaurants. Employees in grocery stores and restaurants must follow the FDA's food code on how to prevent foodborne illnesses. Establishments, like food establishments, must pass local health inspections and train staff in sanitation. In New York City, they have to have a certification to be able to have their restaurant food establishment operated. Plate. Consumers must learn and use sound principles of food safety as taught in this chapter and must stay mindful that foodborne illness is a real possibility and is something you don't want to experience. I know. Food safety from farm to plate. Safeguards to prevent outbreaks. Pasteurization, especially for milk or other products. Bacteria colonies in soil, so like such as E. coli, and here are some information about E. coli which you can look at and how it affects people since it's communicable. Food industry controls. Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point, HACCP. All food producers have this plan. It is an identification of critical control points to see what went wrong, so they go through steps. Grocery safety. There are patch numbering, freshness dates, seal, wrapper, safety buttons. So, when you buy something, you want to make sure the seal is there. There were times that I brought my items back when I noticed that a seal is broken. Or just recently, I bought some frozen food and I noticed it was probably broken. Someone taped it, so I brought it back to my grocery store. And since they know me, they they kind of let me exchange. It also helps sometimes when you know the people, but they should be able to exchange it for you too. And out of safety, you shouldn't really have those kind of food open and serving yourself with it, because you never know if someone puts something in there. You just want to be cautious. So back to grocery safety. When shopping, select frozen or refrigerated foods and fresh meat last, because let's just say you're going shopping and you're going to be there for 2 hours and you get ice cream or any other frozen foods, meat, it's going to start melting, or bacteria is going to produce. So those are the things that you want to um, shop last, especially if you're going to take the bus or subway or walk home or even drive home. So you have to think of all the time that these foods are out of the freezer or refrigeration temperatures. Table 12-4. Are your foods expiring? Food manufacturers voluntarily print the following kinds of dates on labels to inform both sellers and consumers of the product's freshness. So there's sell by, best if used by, expiration date, opening date, and pack date. So let's look at sell date. It specifies the shelf life of the food. After this date, the food may be safe for consumption if it has been handled and stored properly, also called pull date. Best if used by. Specify the last date the food can be of the highest quality. After this date, quality is expected to diminish, although the food may be safe for consumption if it has been handled and stored properly. But also, freshness date or quality assurance date, it is called. I just sound like Yoda there. But it can be called other names too. Expiration date, the last day the food should be consumed. All foods except eggs should be discarded after this date. For eggs, the expiration date refers to the last day the eggs may be sold as fresh eggs. For safety, purchase eggs before the expiration date. Keep them in the original carton in the refrigerator and use them within 30 days. Open dating. A general term referring to label dates that are stated in ordinary language that consumers can understand, as opposed to closed dating, which refers to dates printed in codes decipherable only by manufacturers. Open dating is used primarily on perishable foods and closed dating on shelf-stable products such as some canned foods. Pack date. The day the food was packaged or processed. When used on packages of fresh meats, pack dates can provide a general guide to freshness. Especially when you buy meat, you want to see when it's packed and when it can be sold by. So sometimes people put the fresher ones in the back, so the ones in the front can be sold first. Safe food practices for individuals. Food provides ideal conditions for bacteria because of nutrients, moisture, and warmth. To defeat bacteria, you need the 4 core practices. So here are the core practices. Keep hands clean, healthy skin and nails, adequate hand washing. So you should really wash your hands between 20 and 30 seconds. And there's also alcohol-based hand sanitizer. So keep surfaces clean. Clean sponges and cutting boards. So you want to have at least 2 or 3 different cutting boards. So one for raw meat, one of them for cooked food, one of them for vegetables and fruits, and another one for bread. Okay, separate. You want to prevent cross-contamination. You don't want to put your cooked food and your non-cooked food together. Cook. Safe internal temperature. Use a food thermometer. They're not very expensive. I've bought them in Amazon or other hardware stores for $10 or less. Storing foods after cooking is really important. It depends how you store it. If you're putting it in a shadow kind of container or a big container. If you put it in a shadow container, they cool faster. And I also want to comment on the internal thermometer. What it means is you don't just judge the temperature on the outside of the food. You kind of use the thermometer, thermometer, and poke it in the middle. That's the best place to find out how high or low the temperature of the food is. Chill, refrigeration, and thawing frozen items. So here's something called fight back, like fight bacteria. Keep food safe from bacteria. So under clean, wash hands on surfaces often. Not only your hand, also the surface where you're cooking too. Clean, keep hands, utensils, and surfaces clean. Separate, don't cross-contaminate. So separate, keep raw food separated from ready-to-eat foods. Cook. Cook to proper temperature. So cook to proper temperatures and keep hot foods hot. Chill, refrigerate promptly. Refrigerate food promptly and keep cold foods cold. So you want to keep cold foods cold and hot foods hot. You don't want to keep the cold foods hot and hot foods cold, and vice versa, keeping them both warm or cool. How do microbes grow? So, about a zillion germs can live in 1 gram of poop. That's the weight of a paper clip. Wow. Hundreds of thousands of bacteria can fit into a space the size of the period at the end of a sentence. Wow. But they didn't tell me how much font, so I assume it's the regular font that you might see in most books. So here on the right hand side, the growth of a bacteria over 5 hours at 37 degrees Celsius temperature. Initially, like there's a population of 100 for the bacteria. So after 1 hour, it grows to 800. After 2 hours, 6,000. After 3 hours, it's like 50,000. After 4 hours, 400,000. And then after 5 hours, over 3 million. Germs by the numbers. So everyone has bacteria. So the average person touches his or her face 3.6 times per hour. So can you imagine how many times you touch your face within the probably 18 hours that you're awake? So let's look at the calculation. 18 times 3.6 is about 64.8 times within the 18 hours. So there are 150 different species of bacteria living on the average human hand, based on the Ohio State University study. Bacteria have been around for 3.5 billion years, making them the oldest known life form. From Discover magazine. Each year, an estimated 48 million people get sick from a foodborne illness. 128,000 are hospitalized and 3,000 die, based on CDC. 20 seconds is the length of time suggested for hand washing to prevent the spread of germs, plus 10 seconds to rinse. So that's about 30 seconds altogether. So you want to make sure you touch every single part of your hand. 52 of the average lifespan is in 1915, before many advances in modern medicine. That's based on let them eat dirt. So right now we're living longer than we used to. See you soon. And remember to read the book.